Males have been the subjects of motion pictures ever since their inception, all the way back in 1878, when Edward Muybridge made his penultimate short film, The Horse in Motion. 130 years later, and males continue to dominate the silver screen. From this first motion picture to The Terminator to Avengers Endgame, males have long since ruled over the film industry. Directors for much of film history have been male, and so have their camera operators and much of your standard production crew. Because males are so often behind the camera and behind much of film studies academia for so long, male criticism and commentary as a film theory didn't develop until the early 80s with Steve Neal's Masculinity as Spectacle. With this study, he was one of the first academics to realize the lack of male focus in film studies, especially in comparison to women. What was gradually discovered since that landmark document is that the male image in film history is constantly changing as society's definition of a true man is reflected in film. For the inception of talkies, male icons of film were entirely based on their good looks rather than their voice, mannerisms, etc. Rudolph Valentino from Italy demonstrates this well, as while he had the stunning Italian good looks and muscles, he also had quite an effeminate voice, which made him undesirable once talkies became the standard. A more balanced persona of male charm and charisma and good looks was required. This didn't mean bulging biceps and macho-ness yet. Clark Cable, for example, didn't have a muscular frame, but the way he would deliver lines like,
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn,
made his attitude magnetic. One emerging trend around this time was male anxiety, as after the Second World War, when women had taken over many traditional male occupations, there was a male anxiety when women were reluctant to go back to their domestic duties. Often the film noir movement in particular would be overly pessimistic towards women, as stereotypically seductive femme fatales were the norm across this movement. In the early 50s, with the arrival of Marlon Brando's A Streetcar Named Desire, the well-defined upper body and bad boy rebel persona became the norm. And so too the idea of the male body being a spectacle and a thing to behold for audience pleasure. Over the next couple decades, this was taken to the extremes, with the arrival of blockbuster bodybuilder actors like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Sylvester Stallone. These guys came from martial arts or bodybuilding backgrounds and made the transition to film. With a bare chiseled torso on full display, hypermasculinity had arrived, with the main characters often resorting or being subjected to extensive violence as a way to express their internal struggles. Into the 90s and beyond, representations of masculinity have become much more diverse, as the classic male hero gave way to more effeminate personas and the rise of the metrosexual man in film. And today there is one actor who has somehow been all of these male personas over the course of his career, Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling's filmography is as diverse as they come. He has combined traditional old Hollywood-style machismo in roles like Only God Forgives, The Notebook, Crazy Stupid Love, and The Place Beyond the Pines, but he also has a more metrosexual persona in films like Drive and La La Land. And in his latest project Barbie, he is a combination of all of them. Nowhere is this more self-evident than in the film's most famous song, I'm Just Ken. Of course, the very beginning of this song is the pinnacle of the modern ideal male. Chiseled chest and abs, yet not overly large like the 80s heroes of old. Ken begins with his lamentations of
I'm always number two.
which can be seen as a commentary on male anxiety within today's society. This anxiety is expressed through a war, with heavy air quotes, between tourist Ken and normal Ken, as Ken continues to bemoan his rejection by Barbie whilst fighting on a, for lack of a better term, barbified D-Day sequence. While this struggle is initially displayed through classic war-based violence as seen in many other classic films, it's greatly contrasted with the sheer idea of struggling with one's masculine image as Ken cries, which is very much in line with the more modern introspective image of men in film, no matter how cartoony it might seem here. This perspective is exacerbated with quite the homoerotic moment between tourist Ken and normal Ken, as the war scene transitions into an extended dance sequence of all things before the final chorus, where Ken is embraced by two male dancers and kissed on the cheek. The Kens then end their fighting and embrace while holding hands. The explicit homoerotic nature of this sequence is very modern in terms of masculine theory, as previously it is always suppressed by the character in question dying or being kicked out of the story. And as the scene ends, it has run through every bit of masculine film history, from the male as a spectacle seen throughout the early ages of film to the more metrosexual and explicitly homoerotic males of today. Barbie can be seen quite ironically as a microcosm for all of them.